Panen kohe korra.
Testing. Testing. This is the English channel. Testing on the English channel. Testing the English channel. We're testing the English channel. Test. This is the English channel. Channel 2 for English. This is testing.
Tere hommikust kõigile. Vabariigi president võõrustab täna oma kolleegi Ukrainast.
We are hosting today our colleague from Ukraine, Mr. Volodymyr Zelensky. We are starting with the press conference and first is the Estonian president.
Dear Volodymyr,
dear ladies and gentlemen of the press, dear colleagues. We just had a very warm and good meeting with our Ukrainian friends. And I would like to stress the word friends here, because we have been standing by each other when the Ukrainians are holding the defense war against the Russian aggression. This morning, we signed the presidential decision to bestow the highest Estonian military state decoration, which is the Order of the Cross of the Eagle, first class, with soldiers, as a symbol for a Ukrainian soldier, a Ukrainian warrior, as they're fighting for Ukrainian and all of our freedom. In this brutal war, we are all allies to each other in this brutal battlefield. We are all fighting for freedom, because attacking Ukraine, Russia attacks all the democratic countries. So this war is not something you can get used to. It is not going to resolve itself.
milleks on agressori taganemine.
Solution is that the aggressor will leave, and this presumes a joint effort of all democratic countries. All the Russians' options are based on the hope that the joint allies' cooperation will crumble and the Ukrainians will be left alone. I can assure you we'll do everything we can that this will not happen. This war must end with victory for Ukraine, and with working together we will certainly triumph. The outcome of this war started by Russia will show the strength of democratic countries and their trustworthiness as allies. The outcome of this war depends on our ability to maintain solidarity and to guarantee continued support for Ukraine. We must jointly persist in efforts to weaken the aggressor through sanctions and to make sure that these sanctions cannot be evaded. This aggressor must be also isolated politically. Within the European Union, we have jointly supported Ukraine with nearly 85 billion euros. And this support must continue. Estonia's long-term contribution from the beginning of this full-scale war and until the year 2027 will total 1.2 billion euros. Ukraine needs more and needs better weapons. We must boost the European military production capability so Ukraine will get what it needs. And it's not tomorrow, but they should get it today. Our firm actions are to prevent any further wars of aggression in Europe. Estonia will continue supporting Ukraine as long as the war starts, as long as the war lasts. We have joined a G7 initiative to ensure lasting aid for Ukraine through bilateral agreements. We have taken an obligation to support Ukraine's defense. So for the period of 2024 to 2027, we will contribute 0.25% of our defense budget. We encourage all who donate to Ukraine to continue giving at least as much every year until Russia has not stopped its war. When providing military support, we must realize that in war, one cannot avoid attacking the aggressor's military targets in order to slow down or weaken the enemy forces and to defend and protect the Ukrainian people. There should be no limits on the weapons that we provide to Ukraine. When it comes to rebuilding Ukraine, then we have specific plans in place for the next years. So it is fair to use aggressors' frozen assets towards this. We are currently discussing with our allies proposals how it can be done. We are convinced that the aggressor must pay the bill for reconstruction. Our goal is to welcome Ukraine as a member of the European Union and NATO. We will walk this path together. For Estonia, the Ukrainian peace formula is the only way to achieve a peace that honors the principles of the UN Charter, and we're actively working towards this achievement. We will not rest until the children deported from Ukraine have been returned and the war criminals have been held responsible. The world will not become any safer in the near future. Our appeal to every European country is the same. We must contribute significantly more towards defense, as Russia and other authoritarian regimes are threatening our common values and security. Russia does not only wish to conquer Ukraine. Along with other dictators, it has issued a challenge to the entire democratic world by using weapons acquired from North Korea and others. Putin is also fighting for them. Therefore, we must work to counter these dangers together, standing shoulder to shoulder. So for this, Europe must become more powerfully militarily. Europe's lasting peace requires long-term investment into defense capabilities. We must demonstrate that our ideals, democracy and freedom, are stronger and more enduring. Together, we will achieve victory and peace. Thank you.
Kõneleb president Zelenskõi.
Mr. Zelensky, please.
Дякую дуже, шановний пане президенте.
Thank you, dear Mr. President.
Шановні журналісти. Передусім я хочу
First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for the unwavering and unchanged attention to Ukraine, to the needs of our people, to the needs of our defense industry, and for your support to Ukraine. What we feel constantly, what we feel today during my visit and during the whole course of this war. Ukraine highly appreciates that Estonia supports us in many aspects, and in many aspects demonstrates its leadership Estonia has provided to our state and our warriors. Already 17 packages of defensive support. You have demonstrated your leadership by suggesting to the whole Europe the cooperation in provision of our artillery, creating the ammunition coalition. We highly appreciate that you have chosen the holistic and long-term approach to support of Ukraine and have defined the 4-year volume of support to our state. Very principal is Estonian position regarding European and Euro-Atlantic integration of Ukraine, and I thank you for the strong support of Estonia to our state in the question of opening EU negotiation accession, as well as to our further coordination with NATO. Thank you so much, Mr. President, and I also thank for the belief in the prospects of Ukraine to become a full-fledged member of the NATO alliance. We have also discussed the coordination today on the level of European institutions, on our capabilities in EU. Estonia is working together with us on the issue of justice, which is a crucial question not only for Ukraine now, but for each and every state that appreciates international law and believes that it is international law and not law of force that has to define the character of life in the world. Today we have also discussed this with Mr. President and will also cover it with Miss Prime Minister. For us it is crucial that Russia bears full responsibility for its terror, for each committed crime, for all the destructions that were brought by its aggression. And this regards both legal responsibility of criminals. All Russian killers and murderers, they should bear responsibility. This regards also to the full responsibility of the aggressor state, including the fact that Russia has to pay full price for this aggression. Its assets and assets of all physical and legal persons that are connected with the aggressor states, they need to be located, frozen, and after all, confiscated for the sake of defense from Russian aggression and help to all those in Ukraine who have suffered from the war. When Russia will be bearing responsibility for its war politically and legally and of course financially, this will be an important contribution to the global protection of peace, and it will be a lesson learned for other potential aggressions. And I'd like to praise, Mr. President, your personal efforts in this cause, the cause of defense of justice and idea of Russia's full accountability. I know that Estonia is now preparing the law on Russian assets, and Ukraine will be very grateful for the efficiency of this law. One of our most important political goals for this year is the realization of Ukrainian peace formula. We have made a long way from suggesting the formula to uniting, as of today, more than 80 states in the joint work on realization of the points of the formula. Estonia, was one of the first countries to join to this initiative, to our joint global work, and I'm grateful for it. One more thing, I'd like to particularly praise Estonian help in providing treatment and medical rehabilitation to Ukrainian warriors. Today we have in detail discussed the situation on the battlefield, about our military prospects. Mr. President, and all of you present here, you crystal clear understand the difficulty and brutality of this war. And this is of utmost importance indeed that Estonia supports us in all elements of protection, in all elements of our Ukrainian resilience, and in everything in where we can prevail and definitely will prevail over the enemy. Once again, thank you. Glory to Ukraine.
Küsimus Eesti Rahvusringhäälingust, Anton Aleksejev.
Anton Aleksejev.
Добрий день, пане президенте. Дуже приємно вас бачити десь у нас в Естонії. Скажіть, будь ласка, от я чув, що вчора на спільній прес-конференції з паном Наусєдою в Литві вам було поставлено питання щодо можливості якоїсь паузи у бойових діях.
The issue is relating the pauses in the hostilities. You have replied that they do indeed exist, but from your Western allies, you do not yet hear any statements like that. And I have the issue. My question is relating to the question that why do we all need to think that this pause or the ceasefire can be used by Russia? Don't we think that we can get any benefits from the ceasefire on the battlefield? Because we can also deploy our defensive manufacturing, the production of weapons, gather funds to support Ukraine. Why do you think it will only play for the sake of Russia, not Ukraine?
Näiteks. Me arvame, miks kogu aeg räägitakse, et see võib olla ainult Venemaa.
I believe that it's a question of whether it's a benefit for Russia or it's beneficial for us as well, because we need time to support our own resources as well. What do you think about ceasefire? Maybe this is the ceasefire which is also beneficial for us.
Дуже дякую за ваше запитання.
Thank you so much for your question.
Пауза на полі бою, на
Pause on the battlefield in the territory of Ukraine is not a pause in the war. It does not say that this will be a stoppage of the war, and this does not lead to the political dialogue with Russian Federation or somebody else. This pause will help only Russian Federation. Why? Because we understand the volume of what they are producing now. We know how many drones they produce, artillery per day. We know what they lack. We see what they lack. We see that they have great deficit in drones and artillery, a huge deficit they have. With missiles as well. And this is not coincidentally that they are now procuring from Iran huge batches of Shahed drones, and they are also trying negotiating missiles from Iran. They have now obtained more than 1 million rounds from North Korea, as well as we see the samples of certain missiles. Why they do it is because they are not catching up to it, because their storages, they were empty after the start of the full-scale invasion to Ukraine. Then they have come with the whole horde, with everything that they had in stocks. Now this pause, this is, yet again emphasize, this will not be a frozen conflict. This is a pause that will facilitate them. Yes, you're right. They are not able to catch up, and the world is also not managing to catch up fast to fulfill in Ukrainian warehouses, but the world is helping Ukraine now, and Russia has deficit, and we see that this deficit influences their resilience on the battlefield. To give a pause, to have this risk, to provide 2-3 years to Russian Federation, it can then overwhelm us, and we will not risk it. And thanks God, all this is decided in Ukraine, and there will be no pauses to benefit Russia. Then, if you have a look regarding the support by the Russian Federation, support by the population of the Russian Federation of this war, support is not rising. Despite our attitude, we believe that they are all guilty in this, in the tortures, in murders, in our death. But nonetheless, they have started to feel it. They have started to feel this war on them. Sanctions. Their economy is falling. It is not growing. They have deficit of weapons and equipment. All that is falling. The numbers are falling. I don't want to say
Це
that
дуже швидко відбувається,
that this is happening very fast, but nonetheless, all this is happening.
довга війна на користь
I'm not saying that
війна не йде на користь
long-term
України будь-яка.
war benefits Ukraine. No war would benefit Ukraine. We're against this war from the very first day, and we will be against it till the very last day, of course. But as of today, this pause is a possibility for Russia to redeploy and regroup as well. What is regrouping? In the very first day of the war, Russia has lost its main combat military unit, its cadre military officers, people with experience in many wars, including Chechnya war, including Afghanistan, Syrian hostilities, etc. Hostilities in Africa. They have waged war everywhere. They have lost the backbone of their Wagner group, and now they are willing to build up Wagners. They now want to mobilize prisoners and convicts and build up Wagner from them. They are willing to do it. Why are they willing to do it? Because they have deficit. So pause will play for their benefit.
ma püüan lühidalt vastata.
Thank you. I tried to answer.
Ütles, me rääkisime vahel.
I tried to answer briefly, and we talked about ceasefire. There are some people who are trying to find things out, trying to test me and President Zelensky when it comes to the topic of ceasefire, and with the same justification as the question was. But let's look at history. We have had ceasefires. After the peace of Tartu, for example, there was peace, but we could see that in 4 or 5 years later, there was a big desire to take over the country. And after the Second World War, there was peace for 50 years for the Western countries. But the outcome of this peace was that in the West, we were not prepared for the new war, which Russia started. So even if it's called peace, we still have to be prepared for it because there is an aggressor next to us. This desire has not disappeared, and this willingness to attack is definitely there. So therefore, we have to be prepared continuously for the attack, and we have to be prepared to defend ourselves. Question from a Ukrainian colleague.
Ганна Гомонай, телеканал Рада, Україна. У мене запитання до пана президента Естонської Республіки.
I have the question to the president of Republic of Estonia. The EU has now made a very important decision to provide to our country 1 million ammunition rounds, and after 1 year we have obtained less than half. In your opinion, why this process is moving so slow, and what we would do to speed it up?
Me peame kõik tegema selleks.
We all have to do all we can in order to speed this up. But without this decision, we would not have this ammunition which has been now handed over to Ukraine. We already discussed this with President Zelensky. The most of the support comes from the Western countries, and we have to make sure that the promises which have been made will actually be delivered. So this is the task for all of us to speed this up, but there is nothing much to say, including for my job as a president, to stress this, that you need this ammunition, you need the equipment, and as said in my presentation, you need this today. Radio.
Thank you. President Zelensky, in the news today is that the United States is planning to ask you next week in Davos about clarifications in the war plan. And some allies, Italy, wants you to move on with the possible peace negotiations. How much pressure do you feel from allies to change something in the war and move towards the peace negotiations? And question for President Kari is, how much right have the allies who are supporting Ukraine to pressure Kiev towards something, a new war plan, a new peace plan? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, maybe because of translation. You ask about pushing from our partners, Italy or United States?
The United States from one side wants clarifications, the war plan. Italy talks about peace plan. So how much pressure you feel from allies to change something?
Ніяких подібних перемовин у мене з Італією не було.
No such negotiations. I have never had neither such negotiations with Italy on any level. That's why it is difficult for me to comment. Regarding the military plans, whilst everything is decided in the cabinet of Ukraine, our war will be for the sake of Ukraine. And whilst this, and for now this is happening in exactly this way.
jah, nagu ma korra juba vastasin.
Yes, as I answered that when it comes to this peace formula and this alternative is people are testing this not during official meetings but in the corridors in order to find out the mindset. But our answer has been the same as President Zelensky has said, that the peace arrives and you sit behind the table once Ukraine has won the war. And when Ukraine has won, they will say. But to which extent the allies can put pressure on Ukraine? Mr. President, it's what you do about this pressure. Pressure can be there, but what you do about it, as long as we stay firm, and we stay firm in Europe, and not only in Europe, that we continue the plan which is on the table, then this pressure doesn't really mean anything. But you, of course, have to take this into account, that there's some countries and the interest groups who are trying to put pressure. But here, our unity is what counts, that one or two countries cannot torpedo this unity, so that can be used up in an opportunistic way. Thank you very much. This is the end of the press conference now, and we'll take some questions.
Hedman
Kelomes, Delfi.
They translate you later, a little bit later.
Good morning. Question to both presidents. Does Ukraine deserve an invitation to NATO at the Washington summit?
Чи заслуговує? Я впевнений, що
I am sure that Ukraine deserves, as no other country, to first and foremost, Ukraine has a strong army that will definitely strengthen Eastern Europe. The NATO countries,
армія з воєнним досвідом.
it is army with experience and not theory but practice, and the army that it is also the army that have used NATO weapons and equipment in times of war on the battlefield, and not only on military training grounds. And we are well aware of all the pros of these weapons and equipment, and we know all the cons, we know all the difficulties on the battlefield in each period of the year. Unfortunately, this experience means lives of people, and unfortunately this is a fact. Therefore, when we are talking about the level of our army and compatibility and interoperability with NATO standards, I see that we are absolutely ready. As regards our institutions and our people, they are implementing all necessary reforms, even this in times of war, and we have demonstrated it in practice. As regards people, first and foremost, are they willing? You know that we have around very high percentage, 90% of Ukrainians support NATO membership, and this will be, to be honest, the best security guarantees for Ukraine. And this will ensure that Russian aggression will not come back. It will be best security guarantee for the Baltic states. It will be best security guarantees for Poland. And I think it will also provide a possibility to think of another future for Belarus, and that is membership of Ukraine in NATO.
Lühidalt, NATO on
NATO is a defense organization, and I would like to remind that we started to talk about NATO when we still had the Soviet troops in Estonia. It's a long process, and it's clear that Ukraine will not be joining NATO the day after the war ends. It takes a little bit longer time. But the history has shown that this kind of buffer zones do not work. So this means that these countries who have decided to become democratic and want to defend themselves, and there is no other alternative than NATO.
All right, this concludes the press conference.
Thank you so much.
Suur tänu esinejatele, suur tänu.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the parties. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll be there. Okay.